Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Kaine went before the public today in the Pentagon to explain some alleged new intelligence and leading to a very confident assertion that all three nuclear sites were completely obliterated. In fact, there's been a number of senior administration officials going to great lengths to assure everybody that this has been totally destroyed and you don't need to have any questions about it. However, in the course of him explaining why they're so confident, Secretary of Defense himself admits they have no idea. And how he can make that claim, how he can make that revelation at the same time he's making the claims that don't question me, don't ask any more questions because just trust me, it was done, was not explained. The thing is, Daniel Davis Deep Dive, we are unintimidated and uncompromised to bring you the truth. And so far what we have to know, folks, and I'm just going to lay it out pretty straightforward, we don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Secretary of Defense Hegseth doesn't know what happened. Steve Witkoff doesn't know what happened. President Trump doesn't know what happened. They know that we dropped some ordnance. We know that some of it went into a hole. And what happened after that, we're just guessing. Everybody is just guessing. And there's no harm in that. You can say, well, as best I can understand, the likelihood is that we caused severe damage. You can even say, if everything went just right, we possibly could have even destroyed it. That's plausible. You can say that. That's not what they're saying. Instead, they're saying, without any physical evidence, that everything was totally destroyed. And trust me on this, it's been set back a couple of years at the best. At the best. No, folks, it's not. And let me show you exactly why. I mean, this first clip here is going to be a little longer than normal because it is the General Kaine who's going to go into some length to try and show some visual imagery, some charts, and then a sample of a video that was of a test of this 30,000-pound GBU-57 I keep mentioning. This is not going to be the conclusion that he may have intended. It's not going to produce what he thought. And I can tell you, even before we made this show here today, I've inquired of a number of other experts here in the Washington, D.C. area, and none of them are convinced by this. So it's not clear that this is going to work out the way the president wants. But let me just show you this video, first of all, from General Kaine, and then let me point out some problems with it on the backside.
So on Fordo, in June of 2008, you can see these three holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with two additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these two ventilation shafts, seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space. In the days preceding the attack against Fordo, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack. I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were. The planners had to account for this. They accounted for everything. The cap was forcibly removed by the first weapon, and the main shaft was uncovered. Weapons 2, 3, 4, 5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space. Weapon number 6 was designed on each side, so there were 6 on each side. Weapons number 6 was designed as a flex weapon to allow us to cover if one of the preceding jets or one of the preceding weapons did not work. The video I'm about to show you is a culmination of over 15 years of development and testing. As I said, hundreds of test shots on various models. This is one weapon. So if you take a view of this as 5 additionals, you'll get a sense of what this looks like.
Okay, folks, pay very attention to how short this is. This is maybe one story. That's going to come into place here in just a second. It's going to be really important. Let's keep watching.
keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space. Unlike a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast, ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over.
Okay, let's just look at something important first of all, before we get into the specifics of what the general said. Does it make a lot of sense to have this big public briefing where we're going to tell you in detail exactly how we attack this site? I mean, just on the surface of it, this seems kind of foolhardy for our government and our highest ranking general and our highest ranking civilian leader in the Department of Defense to go out and tell everybody exactly how we did this. Because I can just tell you, just from me watching this one time, I'm sitting there and the first thing that occurred to me, okay, now if I'm ever going to try and bury some kind of a facility under the ground and I know this is the capability, this is how you're going to come after me, I'm going to build it in a very different way. So, and listen, this isn't the first time the Iranians have seen this. These things have been out there for a while. These tests have been going on for a long time, and people understand how it is. You saw Ted Postel, former professor from MIT, came on the show and showed you in graphic detail in a video. By the way, our first one that went viral had over 1.1 million views last I saw. He's going to be back on the show. Obviously, you may have already seen it by now. I'm recording this. I'm still in London, by the way, and I'm as eager to watch that show because Gary's going to run that one as I am anything that the Secretary of Defense had, because I'm really eager to hear his view on this. But if it was me on the opposite end of one of these bunker busters coming in, or that I knew the United States would come to me, I would make sure I would build my facility in a very different way than what is imagined here. And as I said during that video, if you caught what I was saying there, you saw something built into the side of a hillside, it looked like, and you saw an entry point on one place there, and then you saw like a cave opening, maybe a floor, 2 floors below it, and then you saw the blast wave come out, because that makes a great video. So it looks really impressive, but that's going to be very different than what the President of the United States describes in just a second. Don't want to jump ahead of myself, but let's take a little bit more look at that. In light of the fact that I would have built a facility that wouldn't made it so easy for the U.S. to drop a GBU-57 and destroy everything that I was trying to protect, I doubt very seriously that the Iranians did either. They know what a bunker buster is. They know how it works. And that's one of the reasons why they specifically chose Fordo as one of their main reprocessing plants and one of the locations, because it's not just dirt. That simulation you just saw there, you can run the video back if you want, it's mainly dirt. So in the test that we've done, and apparently there's been quite a large number of them, they, from all that we've been able to assess from the outside, have all been set up like perfect conditions. If we want this thing to operate in a flawless situation to see how it can go, here's the greatest conditions that work well for us, as opposed to what is the most likely course of action the enemy would follow and the most difficult circumstances. If you make a bomb that can work under the most difficult of circumstances, then you have a much higher chance of success, as opposed to designing something to work well when all the conditions are perfect. For example, if I was going to design one, I would not have it where he showed on that graphic there, where there was like, a couple of ventilation shafts and then one other one, and then a middle, and the shaft, it went straight down, like nice and easy, like a big tube. So you put a big crosshairs on the top where the vent is, drop a bomb, go straight down into the middle of it, and then wham into the mission space, as he called it there, into the building where they were doing whatever it is we didn't like and wanted to destroy. I would not do it that way. I would make it to where, the shaft would come down like this, then maybe make a hard right turn here, maybe go down again, and then at a different angle in the opposite direction, then go down again, so that nobody on the surface would have any idea where the actual mission space was. I mean, the Iranians do not strike me as stupid, and it would be, in my view, stupid to build a facility with a nice little easy tunnel straight down the middle so that you have a single point of failure, so that if one of these bombs happens to go down the shaft, that everybody's going to die or everything is going to be destroyed, etc. So I doubt that the Iranians were that stupid. So that's a good point right now. Also point out that we don't know whether they were there or not. We don't have any idea. That's going to be admitted here in a second. Let me not jump ahead of myself again on that either. The other thing is that test, you see, this maybe 30 feet, 30, 40 feet. That's it, in dirt. But everything has been alerted that somewhere between 275 and 300 feet is where the actual Fordo mission space, as it's called, is located. So what good does it do me to do a test in easy dirt at about 30 feet when I need to have something that can go much, much deeper, like almost 10 times deeper, in not just dirt, but in a granite mountain? The reason they chose Fordo is because there's a lot of natural occurring granite underneath there, which is going to make it incredibly difficult for any kind of a bomb to follow this nice, neat little target plan wherever it may go in on the surface to still keep going straight down. That's the real challenge here. And again, we don't know. I don't know. All I'm telling you is neither does the Department of Defense, neither does the Secretary of Defense, neither does the President of the United States. We just don't know, and yet we are claiming with confidence and certainty that we did get it all. And then, in fact, let me just go ahead and go to that right now. Here, in fact, very confidently, is the President of the United States.
Is there any indication from U.S. intelligence that Iran was able to move any material, including
just the opposite. We think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move. And if you knew about that material, it's very hard and very dangerous to move. It's called, in many people, they call it dust, but it's very, very heavy. It's very, very hard to move. And they were way down, they're 30 stories down. They're literally 30, 35 stories down underground.
I think you got it all.
Oh yeah, we think it's covered with granite, concrete, and steel.
Yeah, we think we got it all. It's 30 stories down. Not one, like in that test that they showed a minute ago, 30 stories down. And not dirt, but granite, concrete, and steel. And that, of course, is assuming that it's in a nice straight line, and they made our jobs really easier as opposed to, some kind of circuitous route or something that's like a plan underneath that goes in all different directions that nobody can pick right. As long as none of that happened, well, I mean, even if it did, you see what I'm saying there? The president was told correctly that this thing was probably 30 stories down there. And yet, why then do we think with such confidence we knocked the stuff out of there when it was be so hard to get down into? Well, one of the other administration officials who's trying to blast everybody about basically kind of how dare you question anything we have here, Steve Witkoff is going to go in and explain on Laura Ingraham at Fox News what happened at each of these three locations and why he is so confident that everything was destroyed.
There are three distinct facilities in Iran that we were concerned with. Isfahan, which is a conversion facility. You cannot weaponize unless you have what's called the conversion process at the beginning of enrichment, and then a conversion process to metallicize the material at the end of enrichment. That conversion facility, which as far as we know is the only facility in Iran that can do this, was completely destroyed at Isfahan. It's above ground. It was hit with a 30,000-pound bunker buster, and it could not survive that hit. So they have no conversion opportunity, and that means they cannot weaponize, even if they've enriched to 90%. Then there are two other nuclear reactors in Natanz, one above ground and one below ground. The below ground one we know we eviscerated, and the above ground one, which had been hit by the Israelis and had been substantially damaged, we put another bomb on top of it just to make sure that it was eviscerated, and we know for a fact it was. Fordo is the last enrichment reactor that was operating there. We put 12 bunker buster bombs on Fordo. There's no doubt that it was obliterated. So the reporting out there that in some ways suggests that we did not achieve the objective is just completely preposterous.
It's completely preposterous because obviously it did. We put bunker busters on it, so of course it succeeded. But he doesn't know. And what do you mean it's preposterous? Because I have not seen anybody that says you didn't do these things. I'm not claiming that because I don't know. I think it's unlikely, given what we do know, given the information that we have, given the performance capabilities of this weapon, given the defensive capacity of the type of terrain it was supposed to go through. I think it's unlikely, but I don't know. Maybe something happened that I'm not aware of. But very few people that I've seen are saying it didn't. So he's defending. It's kind of like a straw man. You're defending against an argument people aren't making. The argument people are making is you don't know. And for the reasons I just mentioned here. So he says it's preposterous. It is not preposterous. It is rational. It is necessary, because you are asking us to believe, the whole administration, that everything we did worked. And so basically problem solved, game over, man. There is no more nuclear weapons program. So we can just walk away from this. Everything's done. We achieved all of our objectives. Time for another parade. Only there's no evidence that that's the case here. And during the question and answer part of that same press conference here, Secretary Hegseth was saying, hey, we've heard lots of information that the thing was moved. Some of this material was moved prior to it. Here's what he had to say to that.
There's public imagery available saying that highly enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the strikes. Is that accurate? Have you seen that?
There's nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
Okay, again, that's not the question that was asked. They said there's lots of publicly available imagery out there, which we've shown you before from Maxar Technologies, I believe, and probably some others for that matter too, that shows lots of trucks parked up there, lined up like they were getting rid of a lot of stuff and things were being taken out. That was the question. Did they take the stuff out? I.e., even if the bomb worked, flawlessly like you want it to, went down 30 stories through all that material the president mentioned, what if there was nothing there to hit? And instead of answering that question, Secretary Hegseth answered a different question, which is we hit everything we aimed at. So that's not answering the question. And unfortunately, it just bugs me when the reporters don't follow it up, at least as far as I saw. I don't know, maybe he did later, but it sure didn't make any of the hits that were put out there. That you answered a different question than I asked. So the question remains, as far as I'm concerned, is there credible intelligence that they moved that material out of there before it happened? I know I've seen some leaked intelligence that suggests, yes, it was, or that we just don't know where it is. We don't know whether it was down there, whether it was moved somewhere else, etc. Just be accurate and honest with us. But don't say we want this to be true, so we're just eschewing everything else and insulting anyone who says anything to the contrary and that's preposterous and all this kind of stuff. Like basically, how dare anybody in the world or in America specifically question what we said? And in fact, that was also a part of this process. They said, hey, what gives you so much confidence? And Secretary Hegseth is going to talk about the CIA director. I don't know about you. This did not exactly fill me with a lot of confidence.
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know, that the press isn't going to know. And he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible. They've given credible intelligence. They or those processes have given credible intelligence in the past. And that's what he's basing it on.
So just trust me, bottom line. Just trust it. The CIA guy, I can't tell you anything about methods and can't tell you anything about sources. I can't even tell you what the intelligence is at all. But just trust me because the guy's been right in the past. Some of our sources have been right in the past. So when we tell you this is the case here, just trust me and stop asking questions. Don't ask me any more questions because we said this is what it was. And of course, the CIA, of course, never lies to anyone. They never give misinformation or disinformation to an American audience. So of course, that should just end all the questions right there. Come on, man. I mean, we're not stupid. And to go out there with this kind of a media circus, environment, like this is a Fox News broadcast or something that the anchor Hegseth was given in the past. And just like I said, this is the story. Stop asking questions. Well, I doubt that's going to work. I haven't been able to see. I've just got all this stuff shortly before coming on the air here, so I haven't had a chance to see some of the reaction. But from those that I have personally queried, people who have good sources for intelligence folks of their own right in the United States, they are far from convinced. In fact, they have more questions after this briefing than they had before it. Because again, we keep having to go back to that central question: upon what do you have so much confidence? Now, this whole press briefing was spawned because of a True Social post that President Trump put out over the weekend, I believe it was, or maybe it was a day before. I can't remember the exact date, but I do remember the tweet very clearly, or the post, where he was angry because people were questioning whether this stuff had actually worked. And he's trying to make the case that this is an insult to the airmen, to the Air Force folks, and to the mission control people, everybody who had part of this, questioning their patriotism, their capacity. No. Zero of that. I can't speak for anyone else, but I can speak for me. I have no questions about the professionalism, the capability of our armed forces and the people who actually are conducting these things. That bunker buster is a clearly very powerful weapon. Whether it's as powerful as claimed and whether it can do the things we want it to, that's very much open to question. But the fact that it can go down some of those distances, that it does have this explosive penetration capability, is a testament to the R&D kind of processes that we've done and the development, whatever. The people who dropped the weapons, the people who went through airspace, all that stuff, that's all very good. And some of the tomahawks that were fired from the ship, some of the Navy personnel, those all appear to have hit right on target. Because I know they hit some of the above ground facilities that was mentioned there. And by the way, probably I didn't mention that about the Witkoff part there. When he talks about some of the above ground facilities that have been destroyed, that's almost certainly accurate, because we do have the capacity to go and take care of that stuff. We just don't have any knowledge about what happened underneath. And we're just asked to trust the CIA director, which is kind of the silliest thing in the world. That's like saying, hey, trust the big bad wolf that he didn't do anything with Little Red Riding Hood. Probably didn't, but just trust me. There's some history there that make me not want to trust. So if you're looking to try and convince the American people using that as your go-to advice, your go-to evidence, probably not a good plan. Probably not going to do anything but cause more questions and cause less trust underneath it. That's certainly the reaction it's having on me. If the press conference ended right there, that's kind of where it would be too. My confidence coming out would be less than it was going in, and I would have more questions than I did. But holy cow, that's not where it ended. The Secretary of Defense himself made another comment here, which just made my jaw drop. We'll see if it does for years. I'm not going to set it up any more than that. Watch this, and we'll talk on the backside.
I mean, what changed in the past 3 days that make you so,
Sir, I think I
think I explained what changed. There was a great deal of irresponsible reporting based on leaks, preliminary information in low confidence. So you bring the chairman here, who's not involved in politics. He doesn't do politics. That's my lane to understand and translate and talk about those types of things. So I can use the word obliterated. He could use defeat, destroyed, assess, all of those things. But ultimately, we're here to clarify what these weapons are capable of, which anyone with, two eyes, some ears, and a brain can recognize that kind of firepower with that specificity at that location and others is going to have a devastating effect. So we all recognize there will be days and weeks ahead. That's why yesterday I said, if you want to know what's going on at Fordo, you better go there and get a big shovel, because no one's under there right now. No one's under there able to assess, and everyone's using reflections of what they see. And that's why the Israelis, the Iranians, the IAEA, the UN, to a man and to a woman who recognize the capability of this weapon system, are acknowledging how destructive it's been. So that's what's changed.
Are you kidding me? He just mentioned we don't have any idea what happened. Unless you have a big shovel, he said, because the Iranians, the Israelis, the IAEA, nobody's been down there. Consider the ramifications of that. He started off by talking about, he may use, defeat or destroy, but I may use obliterated. Okay, if you know anything about the English language and you have a dictionary and you look up the word obliterated, it don't mean something happened and who knows what, but I guess it was bad. It has a very specific meaning. It means destroyed, utterly taken, wiped out, obliterated, not just damaged, but wiped out. I mean, it's a really strong term. And then he drops that bomb where he admits he has no idea. not the Israelis. He claims not even the Iranians. And there may be some truth to that too. They may not send anybody down there yet. Because I mean, again, I think I said this the last time we talked about this. If you had just hit a nuclear facility before I sent anybody anywhere, I want to, to have an assessment to make sure that there's not nuclear fallout. And before you go down these 30 stories or whatever, however they have the tunnel dug underneath and the entrance facilities, et cetera, you're going to have to go very, very careful and taking readings all the time through as you go through to make sure that, you're not going to send somebody to their death to get a radiation poisoning or something. Now, I don't know how long that's going to take. And I'm sure that there's nobody that wants to know more about this other than Donald Trump than the Iranian leadership. So they have a very high motivation to go down there. But so far, at least as far as we know, they haven't done that. But how then can this whole thing start that the president said minutes after the bombs impacted that it totally obliterated, destroyed everything when, and I said this at the time, you have no idea. Nobody knows. It's impossible to know that soon. I mean, even if the Iranians went in a couple of days later and they went quickly and didn't worry about their radiation risk, et cetera, it's going to take some time to get down there. So the fact that he said that right away, I knew there was no chance, zero chance that was accurate. It was a hope. But then as the days continued to pass, and then we continued to make these statements that even more and more authoritative. There was a leak that came out, I want to say a few days afterwards, where there was some claim that leaked intelligence from the U.S. said that at best it set them back a few months, not even a couple of years, as some others were saying, but a few months. Well, that was attacked at the administration as saying that was just a portion of something that was leaked. It was one of the options that could have happened. They said it was listed as what's called a low confidence level. And I don't want to get into a lot of details, but there are certain things in the intelligence community that says, this could have happened, that could have happened, and this could have happened. And they will attach, we say this with low confidence, medium confidence, or high confidence. And that depends. There's a lot of internal things that goes on, has a lot to do with the level of validity that we can give to it, et cetera. And so what's being reported, and I have no way to know if even this is true, they said that was one that was done with a low confidence measure. Now, if there was others that were high confidence, we don't know. But when you know, because he just told you that nobody has gone down there, ergo nobody, not the Israelis, not the Iranians, not the Americans, know what happened under the ground. To know whether that mission space, as General Kaine called it, instead of being right here where your aim point was actually over here. Was actually over in this area. It was actually over in this area over here because of a labyrinth of tunnels that changed directions and went all kinds of different directions. You have no idea. Nobody does until they go down there to find out. And it's not like the Iranians are going to validate that for you and hold a press conference of their own and saying, well, we went out, it turned out that President Trump was right. Or, well, you know what? Because of the way we built this stuff, we're good to go. They're never going to tell you that. They're never going to tell you that because they're not stupid. Because they're not going to get help and additional information to their enemies, the people who have tried to kill them, us, unfortunately. And so they will be silent about this. Bottom line is you're not going to know. And so for the president and his senior administration officials to go to length to tell you that just trust us everything. The CIA said it. The president said it. Just Witkoff said it. The Secretary of Defense said it. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said it. Just trust everybody. Even though they themselves don't know. And listen, there is a cost to this, folks. This is not just an eye-rolling kind of thing. This is not just just more of the same. For example, this is eroding and continuing to degenerate the ability of Americans to trust our government. We can't take anything at face value. And then when we have these television show practical newscast kind of presentations that come on to try and convince you otherwise. And, you had Witkoff saying, it's insulting and it's absurd to suggest that this didn't destroy it. For Secretary of Defense to say, after showing that really impressive video where all this fire came out of the tunnel and all this kind of stuff, that anybody with two eyes and a brain in their head can see that obviously, no, anyone who has two eyes and a brain can see that in a video that you very carefully scripted showed that about 30 feet into dirt of a perfectly set up test site that this thing came in there and blew up. That's what we can say with confidence. But 30 stories, as the president added, of granite, concrete, and steel under a who knows what kind of labyrinth of a tunnel that nobody knows about? And yet you want us to just ignore all that stuff. That erodes our trust. And that makes the next time you come out there and for a press conference and you tell us anything, the default position going in is, I'm not going to believe a word of this until I can validate it, until I can believe it with my own ears. And that's a bad place to be, folks. That is a dangerous place to be. We don't want to get to a position to where we can't take anything at face value that our government says. There's too many histories. There's too much tradition. There's too much evidence that we have intentionally told things to our own people that were untrue. And like so many things I've been telling you about in recent weeks here, we don't want our actions to ever have consequences. Sure, we were exposed and found out a lot of things that were lies in the past, sometimes a few years ago, sometimes even from decades before. We just don't want there to be any consequence. Yeah, we lied before, but trust me on this one. It doesn't work there. It doesn't matter how much you want it. It doesn't matter how many graphics you have it, how many cool videos. It doesn't matter anything like that. You sow distrust, you will reap distrust. And then there may come a time, folks, when the government may desperately need people to believe them. And they may say something that seems implausible that may actually be true. But because of this wreckage of the destruction of trust and confidence that we have wrought because we wanted near-term gain in the past, we may not get them to believe us in the future. Something that we may need people to believe the government. That is the potential long-term consequence, far beyond just this embarrassment that is happening today. So things do have consequences, whether you want them to or whether you don't. That is a fact. That's how it's going to continue to work. Listen, if you haven't, I think that it's going to be shown before this. If you haven't seen it already, though, go back to our channel, watch the video with Ted Pulse, because he's going to have a lot of detailed information. I myself am really eager to see what he has to say. Check it out soon. But Daniel Davis Deep Dive will continue to bring you all the information as it breaks, even if I'm on vacation in London, England, or Paris, like I was yesterday with the family. More on that another day. Sorry, it couldn't really fit here. But anyway, bottom line is we're looking out for you, folks, because we are unintimidated and uncompromising. We will bring you the truth, whatever it is, whenever it comes out. Thanks. We'll see you next time on Daniel Davis Deep Dive.